Hi, babies. Welcome back to episode 2 of Double Gemini podcast. I'm your host, Gabby.
I'm Taylor.
And today we have a very fun episode that we've been talking about filming ever since we saw this. We're going to be talking about Promising Young Woman.
The best film of 2021 so far.
I agree. Or is it 2020?
When did it come out?
2020.
Oh, fuck. Okay.
And it won an Oscar for Best Screenplay, which was very exciting. It got recognized. That's all that we could ask. So before we start this episode, just right off the bat, there's gonna be spoilers and also a big trigger warning because
If you've seen the movie, then you know that it deals with some really dark themes, a la suicide,
SA.
and men. This is definitely going to be a heavier episode because of the topic at hand, because of the movie. But we're, going to try to sprinkle in some of our charm here and there in the best lighthearted way we can.
Yeah, we're gonna do our best.
We are going to do our best.
And if we're like smiling or anything at any point, just know it's because we're like uncomfortable and stressed, not because we find it funny in any way.
Which brings us to the fact that before we get started, if you are listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can always watch us over on YouTube. Give us a little like, give us a subscribe, and you can see us in all our glory over there. Let's get into this episode.
All right. So Promising Young Woman.
We are both movie fanatics, movie buffs, as you would say. And we are into season 2 of this podcast, and we found our groove. So this is definitely not going to be the last time we do like a full review of a single movie. So we're really excited to share this with you.
Yeah, and we're excited for what's to come in future episodes because those are well planned out at this point.
Yep. So basically we're going to start. If you haven't seen Promising Young Woman, like Gabby said, there are spoilers ahead, but we recommend that you do see the movie before listening to this. However, we are going to give a little lowdown to the overall plot. And
so in the beginning of the movie, it starts out with the main character, Cassie, going out to bars and basically pretending to be so drunk to get men to take her home in order to get them to, how gross men are, take advantage of women because that is what they do. Acts like she's too drunk to stand to get men to take her home. And once she is there and they start acting like the perverted little shits that they are, she snaps out of it and basically is just trying to hold them accountable for their actions, which makes them either terrified or be like, no, it's not like that, like whatever, or just call her like a bitch.
She uses fear really well in her like advances with these men to kind of scare them shitless in order to really kind of think about what they're about to do, because they do try to like make passes at her, especially when she's drunk, and she inflicts this terror onto them in hopes that they won't do it again with some other woman at some other bar.
You can only hope.
So as the movie goes on, we find out that Cassandra is 30, working at a local coffee shop, and she's also living with her parents in a small town in Ohio. And she seems to be kind of stuck in place until one day she is at work and a man comes in, played by Burnham. His name is Ryan, and he knows her, and he says that he had a crush on her when they were in med school together and basically asks her out.
Things are going pretty well. She's starting to move on from what rut she's been stuck in because of the event of her friend Nina.
And the whole middle of the movie is basically her planning out these 4 different scenarios where she goes and digs up things from her past, people from her past, and is trying to, not get revenge necessarily, but she is trying to really make them see what they did wrong. Because if you've watched the movie, you know that Al Monroe assaulted her best friend Nina when they were in med school together, and Nina dropped out, and Cassie dropped out too to follow her.
Nina ends up taking her life, and Cassie is just left with this guilt for the entire movie. Or, well, the rest of her entire life. But in this movie, you get to see how she is 7 years later still holding on to this kind of
Yeah,
feeling
and
that she wasn't there to help her.
yeah, and she basically is doing these things with these men in the bars and stuff as a way of like, making things right with Nina, even though she's not around anymore, which we'll talk about like what that really like meant for Cassie and everything once we get a little deeper into this episode. But going off of, that bit about the movie is Cassie's doing these things throughout the movie to try to, scare these men, and also, she has an encounter with her old friend who basically, didn't believe Nina, believed all the guys that were in on part of, the assault. And I think that's like a really great segue into the whole theme of the movie is a good for her film.
Mm.
Um, and if you don't know the good for her films, previously they've been films that consist of Gone Girl, Midsummer, Jennifer's Body. Those kind of movies have been like classified as good for her films when really they're kind of female revenge stories, maybe the psycho female tropes, which I think you don't really encounter in this movie as much. The things Cassie is doing is justified. She never does anything really psycho. She's not killing any men. She's not, hurting people. She's just kind of scaring them a little bit.
She's just making them literally hold accountability for their actions, which they, throughout the movie, do not want to do.
Not at all.
Not one bit. But
there's a consistent line that these men are saying in the movie too, where they will say like, I'm a good guy. And I think that anytime that men are asked to be held accountable, that is their number one line, which is, I'm not one of those guys. I'm a good guy. Like, I'm a nice guy.
never trust men like that. Like, advice column for a second. If a man is like, oh, I'm such a good guy, you can trust me, you're safe with me. Like, these are all like the buzz, like little sayings that I appreciate them putting in this movie, because it's like people don't understand how uncomfortable and how unsafe those men genuinely are.
Because I think that it goes for everything, that if you are, what you say you are, then you don't need to say it to prove it.
Yep.
You
Hmm.
don't, it goes for a lot of things, but especially
Yeah.
like if you have to prove that you're a nice guy, you're usually not.
Yeah.
Actions
Yeah.
speak louder than words.
Exactly. But I think with the good for her film of like Gone Girl and Midsummer was like, I understand why they called it a good for her, but it was really just giving women agency in situations that were really fucking shitty. Because you can take a movie like Taken with whatever Liam Neeson, and he's killing all these people and beating the shit out of all these people to get to his daughter, and that's justified. But
As soon as a woman does it, it's psycho.
yeah, like,
There
okay,
is a
I will
double
say
standard.
there is absolutely a double standard, but it's like the reason women love, and you know what? Fuck it, myself included. I love these two goddamn good for her movies. Is like it gives us the relief that we know would never get in real life, because men are always the ones inflicting violence against women, and it's never the other way. And it's like a weird kind of closure for these movies, but it's like really satisfying. But it also goes into like the crazy woman trope, and it's like, oh, she's just a psycho bitch. But
Right. The thing that I have a problem with what I have a problem with the good for her films is that it allows men to kind of say like, look at this. This is
mhm,
exactly what we're talking about. Look at this. They're psycho. All women are like this. While
mhm.
this film kind of highlights the way that men are psychos and women are actually justified in what they're doing.
Yeah, because there were definitely some points in the movie of Cassie going through her list of people to like take responsibility for their actions that you're like, wait, what the fuck did she actually do that? Like her friend at the bar with that random guy that she had take her
Abe.
to his hotel room. Yeah. And then same thing with the lawyer, except that never happened. I still don't understand who those men are, and I'm wondering if they were from her list of men as well, that she's like, you have to do this for me.
I think that the film does a really good job of making you speculate about what Cassie's doing, because there's a great shot in the beginning of the movie as she's walking away from one of her, encounters with a guy that took her home from a bar, and it pans up from her legs, and she's covered in a red liquid, and it slowly goes up, and it shows her arm, and it's covered in that as well, and you initially kind of think, oh my God, like she's covered in blood. Like, what did she do to that guy? She must have like killed him. And then you see that she's holding a jelly donut. And it's like, there's so many subtleties to the film that make you realize kind of from the beginning that you're going to speculate a lot about what
Mhm.
she actually does and realize that she really doesn't do anything.
Literally. And I think one of the best parts about that scene also was her just standing there with the food getting catcalled by those construction workers. And as soon as she's just standing there being like, yeah, what the fuck, what, like not even saying anything, blank face, whatever. And they're like, fucking bitch, you're not that hot anyway. Like,
Yeah, they go through like all the emotions while she just
Mhm.
stands there silent and looks at
Such a
them. And it's like,
power
it
move.
is like, it's powerful to watch. And I think that, again, that has more power in it than like a woman going and killing a man,
Yeah, because it's
you
just like,
know?
it just shows how immature and like sad these men truly are.
And it's a real thing that, most women have to go through when they're
Oh,
walking down
God,
the
yeah.
street or whatever. Um, Much to people's disbelief, it does happen to mostly everybody.
And it happens very often, especially if you live in like a very highly populated area. It's like it's bound to happen like once a day. Like it sucks, but
And that's what Cassie like really is smart about, knowing like the ins and outs of how to kind of get these men to take account, like, or to be accountable for what they did and what they
yeah.
do. I think there's also a moment in the film where you're watching it and you like out loud you say, good for her.
Oh,
And
it's that final number and you're just like,
it's a great moment, and
"Mhm."
the impact that this movie had, I think, on everybody that watches it, really, it did its job.
Yeah, it was definitely like the good for her film in the absolute saddest way possible,
Mhm.
but it was still a good for her because she
Yes.
didn't harm anybody.
It's like redefining what the good for her film can be,
Mhm. Yeah.
away from the psycho woman trope.
Yeah, for sure.
So we've talked a little bit about, Cassie as a character, but she really has a lot of depth to her. She, is living at home with her parents. She's clearly very depressed, missing her best friend, grieving her even after 7 years. And, there's many moments that you notice that she's holding on to her innocence, or at least trying to.
Yeah, just given her like costuming, either she dresses as like an adult that shops at Anthropology or just like a college student. Like there's no in between and it's like very playful with colors and hairstyles too. It's like a costume.
Yeah, she wears a lot of ribbons in her hair, which is something
Mhm.
that's noticeable, that, is a sign of like youth. I don't think any adults really wear ribbons in their hair that much. But yeah, she dresses in like clothes that would be meant for teenagers, or clothes that are too old for her. So it's like she's kind of lost in who she is. But that sort of changes as she meets Bo Burnham's character, and his is really interesting.
So Bo Burnham's little character named Ryan, not little, tall character named Ryan, um, yeah, comes into her life while finding out she works at the coffee shop. I will say something that my dad was wondering is if he knew she worked there and that's why he went in there in the first place. However, I'd have no idea how he'd even know that regardless. Um,
I don't think that he sought her out. I think
you don't
it
think so?
No. I think it was purely coincidence,
Mm.
and whether or not that was a good coincidence or a bad coincidence is, um, up for you to decide, I guess.
My God. Literally, because the reason I brought that up is my dad wasn't sure if from the beginning he just wanted some sort of closure for himself. To be like, oh, I'm being this like good person and like trying to wrong what's right, even though you can't
Do
undo
that.
what you did. Like
He's definitely a complex character. Um,
he's he seems like a nice guy without ever having to say he's a nice guy.
so when I first watched it, I sat there, like, praying that he would
Mhm.
actually be the nice guy and kind of change initial assumptions you would have, like, when seeing him walk in, you're like, "Oh god, this movie is about bad men. He's obviously not gonna be good." And I actually looked over at you and I said, "Like, is he good?" And you straight up lied to my face and you said,
Mhm.
"Yes." And
I had to.
I'm thankful for it because I would have been, like, on edge about it, and then the impact of finding out that he was truly an asshole, wouldn't have had the impact that it did.
Yeah, because I think with his character something that was super important is like first of all, how quickly he could flip from trying to be like, "You have to forgive me, like, I'm sorry," to like, "You're a fucking failure,"
Right,
like,
when she
blah, 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 you
confronts
piece of
him.
shit. And also the fact that being a bystander during that situation is just as bad, and, like, just because you didn't do the act, you are still held responsible
See,
because you watched it and laughed.
the thing that, like, really was wild to me about him was that, um, he never said that he was a nice guy. He never said, "Oh, like, I'm a good guy," or any of those things that would've kind of been big red flags for Cassie to be like, "Oh, no, like, I really shouldn't try to pursue this relationship with him." He was very honest, he was open about who he was. He when he brought her back to his apartment after their first date, he said, like, "Oh, if you don't wanna come in, you don't have to come in," and, she definitely seemed disappointed about it because she thought that he was just gonna be like everybody else and bring her up to his apartment and get her drunk and try to have his way with her or whatever, and he didn't. And from that moment on, you're kind of thinking like, "Oh, like maybe he is good. Maybe he is honest about himself because he seems that way." Which is not the case.
Yeah, and back into the apartment thing, I don't know if she was disappointed that that wasn't the case. I think she was disappointed in herself for not
Seeing it.
like opening up herself to something that I don't
Oh,
know.
wait, what do you mean?
Wait, did you mean like you thought she was gonna or wait, you thought she thought he was gonna be like every other guy? Or I thought she seemed genuinely excited about like spending time with him and was like,
When he goes, "Oh, look, it's my apartment,"
yeah.
and he goes, "We could go in." He essentially tricked her, and I don't think she does well with those things. She
Mm,
doesn't want to be tricked. She doesn't want to be lied to. She doesn't want to be manipulated. And I think that's what he was doing in her mind. I don't think it was what he was trying to do. I think he was just kind of being like quirky or whatever and being like, "Oh, this is my apartment," like, trying to
yeah.
uh, ease into it like naturally, instead of being like, "Want to come back to my apartment," and being shot down. I don't think that she wanted to go upstairs with him because if she did, she would have.
But then why'd she kick over the trash can?
She thought he was like everybody else. I mean, that's how I interpreted it, but it's
Mm,
interesting that you thought different. I think she would have said, "Yeah, let's go upstairs," because I feel like she would have done, her whole routine with him to see what he would have done.
maybe that's what brought her back and was like, oh yeah, he's not a piece of shit. And then the second half of the movie happens and you're like, well,
Yeah.
well, well,
So
Ryan.
we get introduced to, Cassie and Ryan pretty early on. And we also get introduced to her friend, um,
Madison.
named Madison. And She is oh, she's awful. I loathed her.
Yeah, she's the embodiment of the woman's side of, like, the female version of men who defend their assaulter friends. Like, she is the one that's like, "Oh, well, he's a good guy," or, like, literally the line of, like, "Well, which I think was, like, the weirdest way to describe literally assault was, like, sleeping with someone you don't want to. That's, like,
Yeah. Like,
mm-mm.
it's the belief that
If you get
people
drunk, you
that
deserve
claim
for it
they
to
yeah,
happen."
that too, or they claim that, um, that they're assaulted, and then people are like, "Oh, no, you weren't, you just regret doing it." It's like, "No,
N
that's not the
no,
same thing."
no.
Um, but she's trash. She's an awful character. Cassie gets her drunk and, um, kind of tricks her in the way that she tricks men,
Yep.
um, which is good.
Yeah, I liked the, ordering her champagne and ordering herself ginger ale, which is what, like, business people do to, like, get their clients drunk in order to, like, get them to open up or, like, be accepting to, like, taking the deal or, like,
Yep,
investing in that stock or, like, whatever. It's like, "Oh, she she really just played that fucking move out."
yep. It
It was smart, it was really smart.
What's really
And
messed up is when she brings the phone to Cassie and she says, "I've had this for years. I can't believe we laughed at it." The thing that I couldn't believe is that she watched that video and thought, "Yeah, my friend is not getting assaulted right now," which is unbelievable to me.
yeah, the fact she's like, "Well, we were just drunk all the time, like, I thought or, like, I must have blacked it out," or, like, wanted to forget, like, the fact you had literal proof and still was like, "No, it didn't happen."
Yeah.
But I
All these characters in this film are very,
Madison, and then, yeah, from Madison is the dean of the college,
yeah,
played by Cassie Britton. Was that her name? Something?
I think so.
Connie Britton.
Yes.
What a queen. But yeah, her character was just every college ever, like the
Yeah, she
embodiment of
embodied
it.
colleges or like big universities.
Yeah, and the whole like, "Oh, Al Monroe came to speak here like a few weeks ago,
What
like
a
he's such a
great
good guy."
guy.
Yeah, like that line. It's
There's so many subtleties in this movie that just
oh, just
you
hit like
you're just shocked by how painful they feel when you're watching it.
yeah, because it's like very obvious things that people may not find obvious in like their day-to-day life. So it's like hopefully this movie is like a way for you to realize like, oh shit, this is like the most watered down, simplified version to get you to understand like what is so fucked up.
I think that because it's simplified or, it is a little bit watered down, that it's not this extreme, uh, like, depiction,
Mhm.
it allows for it to feel more believable for
Yeah,
people
and
that don't experience it.
yeah. And something that I think everyone who's seen it appreciated was the fact, yeah, there was a video, but you never saw it. You only heard it.
Yeah.
Because I think it's not that it's for shock value, but for like shows like I'm just gonna say like 13 Reasons Why. When they show those violent and graphic scenes, it doesn't do anything because you can clearly show that it happened without, or you can tell it and not show it with it being believable and like making the show progress. Like with the movie, like you heard it, you believed it, you saw her reaction, that was it. Like you didn't want to see what she was watching, and if you do
There's
want to see it, you're fucked up.
there's more power in that. I think
Mhm,
that's a running theme with this movie is how much power all of it holds in the
mhm.
subtleties and the small moments.
God, it was so what's the
Speaking of
word?
subtleties, symbolism plays a huge part in this movie as well. Um,
Yes.
we have both, well, you've seen it 4 times now, I've seen it 3.
I think I've seen it 5 because I watched it with my parents.
And the more you watch it, the more things that you pick up on,
Mhm.
as you do with most things that you watch. But uh, I recommend to anybody who's only seen it once to definitely watch it twice because you'll pick up on a lot of things.
Like, it's even though you know what happens, it still is, like, just as impactful. It's still when it's that final number, you're still like, "Oh, here we go." Like, it's time for, like, the final showdown,
The
even though it's
final
not even a
act.
showdown. The final act.
When I watched it the last time, my 3rd time watching it, I noticed the, connection between one of the first shots of Cassie lying on Jerry's bed, which is, the first guy that we see that she goes back to his apartment with, acting drunk to try to, kinda to try and do her whole thing, and she's laying on the bed in this one position while he's kinda, like, at the foot of her bed, and it's a direct parallel to the way she is lying after she dies in the end,
Mhm.
which was so wild to kinda see and make that connection, and I'm sure that I should have picked up on it probably, like, the 2nd time I watched it, but I think I was still kind of in shock of what I'd seen, so this time I was really picking up on those minor details that, the director really put a lot of thought into.
Yeah, and I was watching, one of my favorite movie analysis channels, The Take. Hi, you're not gonna watch this, but if you are, hi, because they went into that, talked about that position too, and talked about it as her as Jesus on the cross and like the crucifixion, and like she's framed as this like martyr for the greater good. And that plays into like her wearing a lot of blue, or like the blue dresses or robes her is like the Virgin Mary. And there's this one scene in the hospital where the statue is facing her and like praying at her, which was crazy. Or like when she's at the restaurant with Madison, the light above her is the only red light above her and it acts as a halo.
Yep.
And it's just like there's a
Yeah.
lot of little things. And even the scene with the lawyer when he's like on her knee, like his head is
On
on
his
her,
knees.
is like a direct I don't remember the name, but it was based off of a Michelangelo sculpture.
Yeah,
And it was
Mary and Jesus, like, after he was crucified, right?
I'm not sure. Maybe. I they said the name and I did not write it down because I was like, oh, okay, it's fine.
Yeah, and, that red light kind of thing. The red light is a really good point because there is, a lot of lighting choices in the film that are very, uh, intentional.
Hmm.
We love some good lighting, as you can tell by our podcast when we always have our
The
our
bisexual
bisexual
lighting.
lighting. Um,
Lighting and costume color choices were very prominent as a lot of blues and pinks, very like heteronormative, very like gendered
Feminine,
colors.
masculine, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
definitely
There's a whole lot to unpack in that and of itself. Like Ryan wears a lot of blue, Cassie was wearing a lot of pink. She starts seeing Ryan more, she starts wearing more blue. And then at the end she's in the red and white and is just like fuck this shit.
it's really interesting that, as she starts to develop her relationship with Ryan, she definitely does to take on more blue, and he wears blue kind of the whole time, which ties back into what you just said about, her kind of looking as like a Mary figure, which is interesting to think about why it is when she is with Ryan more often that she kind of becomes that Mary figure. So then that also begs the question, is it actually symbolic of like Mary, Mother Mary, or is it she is taking on his color and a way to kind of show the audience that she is not so much conforming, but kind of changing and becoming one with his kind of people, because she does start to put away Cassie's book and kind of give up on her pursuit of getting
Sure.
revenge against the people that wronged her. So it makes you wonder, you know,
Yeah, because she literally throws away that part of her life very quick once she like realizes, oh, Ryan's the one for me, and then it goes into the stars are blind montage.
Yeah, she definitely tries to like, she goes to visit Cassie's mom, which she says to move on, and I'm
Mhm.
sure that must be so difficult for her to be holding on to this for 7 years, trying to get revenge for Nina and, do right by her. But really what she's doing is never going to really do anything right by her
Mhm.
because you can't change what happened.
Yeah, because the whole movie is just basically you're watching this girl grieve in a very it is self-destructive and also very much dangerous way. Because you don't know if any of the men pre the man
Mhm.
would have killed her or tried to kill her
Right.
or something, and it's the also begs to differ, like, was she ready for that? Like, would she have been, like, prepared?
I think that up until that moment that she hears Ryan on that phone call or, that phone video,
Mhm.
she was prepared to, keep living the way she was living, and I think that was really the last, like, nail in the coffin to
Yeah.
kind of solidify, I think that this life is over, and I think she was willing to die at that point, um, which, of course, she did die in the end, but she did get her revenge,
Mhm.
which that good for her moment,
Mhm.
which is right at that end where she dies, her body gets burned by Al Monroe and Schmitty, and then you kind of think it's over and that's it. And then right when you think it's over, it's like, boom, brings you right back
One
in. One
final
last moment.
act, and I think with the ending that I liked is I know the director almost wanted to end it there, but they were like, "No, no, no, no. This wouldn't be how she would go out."
I would
Like,
have been absolutely
I would have been pissed if that's how it genuinely
pissed.
ended. Oh my
Oh
god.
God, same.
I would have been like, mm-mm. Like, nope.
I would have thrown up right then and there.
Right then and there. I I loved though at the like it was like such a small part, but when the cops are coming and the
I know what
sirens
you're
all
gonna say.
wailing. Yeah, and Al's fucking wife is just there still trying to take photos and he's just like clearly like he knows.
Everybody's like, "What the
And
fuck is going on?"
what was his
Mm.
friend's name?
Schmitty.
Played by
Schmitty.
oh, the
Max
casting.
Greenfield.
Yep.
Played by
Why
Max
can't
Greenfield. I don't remember his name. Joe?
why yeah, was it Joe?
Yes?
Maybe?
We're bad at this. Why did
I
we forget
think
his name?
yeah, I think it was Joe. The
I
little
just
like
called him Schmitty the
turnaround.
whole time.
I yeah. Yeah, that was another thing. The casting choice of all the men is like these men that you love, like these little heartthrobby like people or
Mhm.
comedians or whatever. And it's like actually all these men that you love are going to be fucking monsters and you're gonna watch it happen. Like
It's
Adam Brody from the
Yep.
get-go, I was like, this little snaky bitch. I knew you from I guess he was in something else as like a heartthrob.
Gilmore
Never
Girls.
trusted him. Oh, that's right. I need to watch Gilmore Girls. Anyway,
You should.
I should. It has
It's a
like
good show.
everyone I love in it.
Yeah.
Is what I'm realizing. That and Gossip Girl.
Sebby Stan.
Hmm.
Um,
Taylor Momsen, Queen. Talking about the ending to that movie, I think is a very um not controversial, but it's a very debatable topic. Because personally, like when talking about the ending, I mean the final like
the final
seconds,
frame.
the final frame, the winky face. I think, in my humble opinion, it would have been just as powerful if it just ended with love Cassie and Nina.
Yep.
That's it, with the heart or whatever the fuck. I I understand why she did it because Cassie's like, like a sassy, like whatever, but I don't think that she would have put that in there. And I don't think that it was like a necessary
I think it
little
was a
thing.
cheap shot.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this film was almost nearly perfect if it hadn't been for that. And of
Yep.
course, nothing can be perfect, so I guess it makes sense. But I thought it was just, it felt like cheap. It felt like that. mm, it felt like if you were going into a critique in art school and you were showing this film and then you got to that final scene, that was your first draft. And everyone in the room would go, you don't need that winky face at the end. And you think,
Mhm.
but I want it for this reason. And then they kind of convince you out of it because it's not like there's no purpose for it. Um, and that's how I felt. I think that I would have preferred Ryan's face just right then and there, um, scared shitless, like poop in his diaper.
Like, yeah, I loved the scheduled little text moment. Um, yeah, if it just ended with like love Cassie and Nina and then showed his face and then went out.
I think it would have also been interesting, and I hate that I want to say this, but that if it had ended on a man's face, like just think about that. The last shot is a man,
Mhm.
like a close up of his face, and one that basically like led Cassie to her death. That would have been like
C
really, really something.
all of those men, all 3 of those men caused ha that's so fucked to think about is that all 3 of them had something to do with her death in one way or another.
Yeah.
Like, if and it's all their fault. Like, this poor girl has been through the ringer and back, but the other interesting thing that I know we talked about before was, like, after Cassie dies is you don't see her face ever again,
Yeah,
and
I
that's
don't know
it.
if we said that yet.
I don't know if
Maybe
we
we
did.
did. Yeah, that is what is it? Because she becomes just a faceless,
Like,
nameless
a
figure,
statistic.
yep,
Mhm.
in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, that's the thing is, like, there is violence in this movie, but you don't see it, which makes it
I mean,
1,000
you
times more painful.
there's also a moment
Well,
where Al Monroe is, sitting on Cassie's throat,
yeah,
and
I take it back. Yeah, there's that.
there's a moment of silence where it's ringing, like a ringing silence, and it starts to fade back into, her screaming for her life.
It's the most
And
painful,
it's,
like,
oh God, it's mad painful.
and yeah, like, just the making of this movie is so fucking smart. Like, it's so upsetting, but I think Farrell's, like, either someone in her family that she knows or whatever who's a cop said, "Oh, it takes this long to suffocate somebody like that," and that's how long that scene was. So it's like you were there, like in real time,
When I
that it would
watched
take
it
for her to
with
die.
when I watched it with Riley and Hayden, um, I showed it to a couple of my friends recently. Um, Funny enough, in a cabin in the woods. And I was like, oh no.
Uh,
But I showed it, and when he started to, suffocate her, my friend Riley next to me goes, it takes 4 minutes. And we sat there that whole 4 minutes watching it play out. And, it
uh,
doesn't feel very long when you're watching it. And then you look back and it is actually 4 minutes. But um,
when
you can only
it's
wonder how
just
long it must have felt if that was like actually happening to you.
for her, not for her, for Almond Road to just be screaming like, "Stop fucking moving! This is your fault!" was just
Oh, and he's
it.
such a prick
He's such a
too.
pussy. Am I
Oh.
gonna go to jail? Like,
And Schmidt's like, dude, you
it's
did nothing wrong. You did nothing wrong. Like, yes, you did. You just murdered someone, but that's fine.
I
Convince yourself you did nothing wrong. That's cool.
I absolutely loved the costume choices for those men because everyone fucking knows men like that.
The cacks.
The khaki, the Harvard ass looking motherfuckers that are just like, is like gonna do successful in life.
Not anymore. They're
Or
all going to jail.
mm-hmm. Or at least 2 of them are. Because I know for fucking shit, Al
You
Monroe
know
would
Al Monroe
probably,
is going to jail.
yeah.
He's
I
absolutely going to jail.
and I
Schmitty is
feel like he
also
would
going to
rat on
jail.
Joe. Yeah, I
Yes,
don't think
Schmitty
Bo
is
is gonna
going.
go to jail.
I think Bo is going to get jail time too.
I don't know if he
He's
would.
in the video with Nina, and he
But is
lied to
his
the
face
cops.
shown?
He's lied
Oh,
he lied to the cops about where she was. Oh my God, we haven't even talked about that. That makes me so angry. And I mean, that's the point of it. But the way that he, I
Literally
mean,
everything in this is to piss off the women that like know, and it's just like
the thing is that, the last thing he says to Cassie is like really spiteful and angry and, you
such a
know,
bitch. Yeah.
it's bitchy.
It's
Um,
very bitchy.
oh, it's so bitchy. And you think that, oh, maybe he'll redeem himself and like kind of make up for the fact that not only was he there when was assaulted, but he also, knew about it and knew that Cassie was her best friend. I'm sure he knew about it.
Mhm.
It's not directly said, but I'm pretty sure that he must have known.
Yeah.
And I feel like she probably would have talked to him about it, like talked to her about her best friend to him, when they're having these like sweet moments.
Well, like he said, he forgot about it. He was a kid. He forgot.
But he also says, he goes, "Oh, I don't remember." And then he says, "We were just kids. Oh, it was a mistake." And then he just keeps admitting to it,
Yeah,
but
it
making up excuses. So
like just stop talking.
that's when you think, okay, maybe when these cops come to question him, he'll do the right thing and, fess up because he did love this girl. He basically, shits all over her right then and there
Throws her
when he
right
could
under the bus.
when he could have redeemed her instead of saying, "Oh yeah, she was suicidal, she was having dark thoughts, or whatever." Maybe he could have, not done that.
Mhm. And the
But
cop knew he was lying right to his face, which goes into another segment of this, which is the timeline of events from Cassie finding out that Ryan was involved to literally the end of the movie.
and I mean, this is all theory on our parts.
Yeah,
This is what we've talked about and kind of tried to decipher what we think must have happened. But I mean, there must have been
there's planning.
time between not only the bachelor party, but his wedding, because bachelor parties don't happen the night before anymore. Let's be real. They wouldn't have had time to burn a
I
body while before a wedding because it probably would have been in the morning.
I thought it was though.
I don't think so.
I thought it was the morning of,
I don't think so.
because the bachelor parties are normally the night before a wedding.
Not anymore. Like usually people plan their bachelor parties like maybe like the week before or whatever.
I don't know, because it was the same location though. It was like those woods.
Was it?
I'm pretty sure.
We don't know.
I don't know. I think it was the day after, because that would have, I felt like,
I don't think that would
made
have
a
made
lot of
sense. They wouldn't have
sense.
been able to gather all that evidence in less than 24 hours.
I think it was because Cassie sent the thing to the lawyer, and
You
that's what
know what?
sparked
You
everything.
know what we need to do is we need to go back and look, because she writes to the lawyer what day Almond Rose bachelor party is going to be, and there must be like a sign that says the date of the wedding. So we got to be sneaky,
Yeah.
sneaky
Well,
little
because
detectives.
the reason why I think it was the night before is because it was his party was labeled as Al Monroe's last night as a free man.
Yeah, but that's like the slogan for bachelor parties.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's like your last night as a free man.
Uh,
Like you
it's
weren't
like
a
you're
free
still
man when you were in a relationship.
it's I hate men. I hate men that do that. It's so fucking like I don't know. I think it was
I think it might have been like a couple days later. I think what happened was she must have sent the note to
the
the
lawyer.
lawyer. She sent it to the lawyer. He tipped off the cops, which, oh, yeah,
Because the whole time
it definitely wasn't the day after because her parents said that she'd been missing for a couple days. She was gone for a couple days.
well, didn't she tell them that she was just going on a work trip for the weekend, so she hasn't been home?
Yeah, but then they said that she still wasn't home. So if they're accounting for that weekend, then that means a couple days after the days that she said she would have been back.
Huh.
It's definitely not the same night, but because then they would have needed time to go to Ryan's office and question him
Yeah.
because he would have had to go all the way out there to go to the wedding. He would have been at the wedding when they were questioning him. So there is a gap between the night she dies and the wedding. So in that time, I feel like the lawyer was the first one to get any,
Mhm.
stuff. He got the phone and he got the note about saying that she um, thought if she didn't return, she was dead.
Yeah.
And then I think that's when they went to question the parents and Bo. Um,
I think they went into Bo knowing that he was going to lie to them.
Absolutely, you could tell. You could
Like,
tell, and he was also, like,
shit,
nervous. His
he
body
looked,
language was
like, tense,
yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
which is not what you wanna see in a
Right, you would think
pediatrician.
and also oh my god, not to yeah, man, not to mention you're taking care of kids, dude.
Oh my god, sorry. Totally off topic, but definitely related, is the little subtlety of Bo saying that Al was an anesthesiologist was like, it was like the worst. Like, of fucking course he is, right? It's a
No
gross
thanks.
motherfucker is an anesthesiologist. Oh my god.
Oh god,
Absolutely
yeah, Al
not.
Monroe just screamed, "I'm a freaking pussy," like,
Oh my god, I know.
oh god.
Like, that's the thing I hated because like, you look at him and sorry, not the actor, just like the character. Like, you look at him and he's grimy, but he has the like subtle like I don't know, like golden retriever, like, oh, maybe he's not. And then it's the pent up violence that just
Yeah,
fucking
it's the
comes out
aggression.
for.
Yeah, I mean, all of these characters were really well developed
They're
in,
very well thought out,
and
for
very
sure.
well the performances that they gave were amazing.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, this is Bo Burnham's first
Acting
acting
role.
acting role, and I think he fucking nailed it.
Oh my
Um,
god, yeah. He made
I
us
I
love him and hate him. He did great.
I mean, the fact that you were watching and you kind of did hate him was really, really well done on his part because, you know, it's easy to love a character that you love the actor. It's
Mhm,
hard to hate a character when you love the actor. And of course, we have known Bo Burnham since his first comedy special came out. We've loved him for years. So I almost had some, I don't know, qualms about watching him act. I didn't know what kind of character he was playing, but of course,
mhm.
I just was like, I want to love him in this, but I'm scared I'm only going to see Bo Burnham. And I didn't feel that way.
Nope. And I think what was really interesting, just talking about Bo Burnham in general, is like he is playing the kind of man he critiques in his like specials or poetry and
Well, yeah,
everything.
because he
Like,
does a really good job of critiquing like realistic,
mhm.
real life problems. And those kind of men fit into those.
And now he gets to act as one, and I genuinely am like, how are you? Like, that must suck. But it should be a wake up call for a lot of men to also understand that watching it happen, letting it happen, makes you just as bad
I
as the
think that
person
every
doing it.
man needs to watch this movie. I think every woman needs to watch this movie. I think every person needs to watch this movie. I think it really is groundbreaking. I I said to my friend Hayden when we watched it at his cabin, I was like, if you're ever worried about not having enough guy friends, don't
This is
worry.
why. You
You
don't need
don't want
them.
them.
Mm-mm. This is
You don't need to turn out like this. Like,
literally like you don't need that like hyper macho whatever behavior. Like, that's dead, babies. Like, we're done with that. We're leaving
yeah,
that in the past. But
yes, please.
and what I really liked about this movie too is that it wasn't dated. It was very much like a modernized version because I'm sure there's stuff like that, but it could have been sent like 10 years ago, 15 years ago. But it's like realistic because it's like literally shit that happens every single day.
Yep.
But also something I was thinking about was just the name itself, Promising a Woman, which obviously is the promising young man. Like, he has his whole life ahead of him. And like it's gonna be ruined by this like one thing, or like, for fucking example, fucking Brock Turner, where the lawyer was like, oh, you're really gonna like ruin his life over 5 minutes of action. Like,
Yeah.
it just blows my
I
mind.
mean, the dean says something similar. She's like,
Mhm.
"You wanted me to ruin a man's life over this? Well,
We
you
always have
ruined
to
a
give
woman's
them
life over it."
A girl's literally
You
dead, and
ruined multiple girls' lives over it, so good
Mhm.
for you.
Yeah, the lines of her saying, like, we get, like, cases like this, like, multiple times a week, like, 3 to
Like,
4 times a week, like, maybe you should pay attention to your
yeah,
students.
like maybe that's a problem. That's not just speculation. That's not just people coming up with shit.
'Cause it's like, I understand that they're scared of getting sued, but if that's really what you're worried about, you have no fucking backbone and no morals.
Right.
Like, you want
Yeah,
it your
it comes to
students to be
like
safe.
if you're so worried about being sued, like over your moral obligation to people,
Mhm.
you need to check yourself.
Literally. And that's, like, a university problem, but, you know, watch The Hunting Ground to learn about that. Jesus
Oh
Christ.
God, no, don't watch that. I mean, do, but tread lightly. That's all. It's very
Yeah.
traumatizing to watch.
Mhm. It's the real life version, just with multiple people, but anyways,
Overall, I'd give this movie like a really solid like 9.5 out of 10.
9.5 because of the ending.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd give it that. I don't know, like when I think about, any critiques I have of it other than that ending,
Yeah,
there's not many.
no, I really like the music choices too. Something that I picked up watching it for the 5th time was in the beginning with her and Adam Brody, the minute that they, like, get out of the car and are in his apartment, or, like, no, once
Isn't it
they're in,
like
like, the
silent?
Uber. Yeah, it's literally quiet up until he starts to, like, do stuff, and that's when it, like,
Yeah.
you're like, and that's why it's so uncomfortable because there's nothing there. You're just
The
watching and hearing, and it's just
stars are blind. Paris
st
Hilton, a
stars are
choice.
blind. That that was the last time you look at Bo Burnham and you're like,
Oh,
"Yeah,
I love
I
him.
like him."
Fuck him.
Yeah,
You switch up real fast. As
yeah.
you should. You should
If
not
you
end that movie liking him.
Yeah, you shouldn't feel bad for him at all. He was there.
Okay, anyways, what else do we want to talk about?
I don't know, I think we hit on pretty much everything, like, we analyzed some of the characters, did we do our favorite moment? Well, no, we kinda talked about it, though, as we went along, so it doesn't need to be, like, one of the best and I think, like, most iconic moments was the cover of Toxic at
Oh
the end when
yeah.
she's getting ready for her final, like, moment. That was, I think, the perfect song, and that just slowed
I
down
know,
super
I
eerie
agree.
version.
I think that the moment where the fifth tally mark shows up on the screen is probably my favorite moment, where it
Mhm.
was like, dun dun, it was like, no, it's not over.
You're like, "What? What's left?" And
And
that's
then
when
it's
you
like,
get those little
wee woo,
scheduled
wee woo, wee.
and his wife's just like
She's like, what the fuck is going on? And then they're like, you're going to jail.
and he says nothing because he knows to shut the fuck up for
Yeah,
once in
he
his
don't.
life.
If he doesn't have a lawyer present, he's already been
Mhm.
through this.
And I think the old guy standing there at the end must have been his dad or something. He was just
Yeah,
like just watching. He's like,
I
"What the fuck
know.
just happened?"
Imagine that you go to a wedding and then the groom gets
Your
fucking.
son's literally arrested, and you're like, "What the fuck?"
That
Because
would be wild.
it's not like they quietly were like, "You're under." It's like you're under arrest for the murder of Cassandra
You
Thomas,
murdered
and
her.
everyone's just like, and
Murder.
Schmitty just runs away in slow
Schmitty's like,
motion.
bye.
He
I
booked it
know.
out. Oh my god. And Bo's just standing there
And
looking
Bo
so
is
angry.
sweating bullets. He's like, oh fuck, because he
Mhm.
knows. He knows that they knew. Dude, great movie, really great. I love
I
talking about it
think
because it really
there's just so
just,
much.
but yeah, it's just one of those films that you have to talk about. Uh, Films.
Films.
If I ever meet a dude and he's like, "What's your favorite film?" Mine's like
Pulp
Pulp
Fiction.
Fiction. I'd be like, Promising Young Woman. Alternatively, the B movie.
The Cat in the Hat.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
How dare you forget where
My origin,
your origins your
my Joker
Joker.
origin story is the Cat in the Hat. Yeah, let's unpack that movie in an episode. I survived
The
the Quan.
nightmare. The nightmare fuel that was The Cat in the Hat.
I love that movie so much, and I'll
It's
never stop
so
talking about
funny.
it. I'll never stop. Yeah, any final notes?
My God, I don't even know. I think, did you expect her to die? Did you think she was gonna die?
I
Like
had
going
zero
into it?
expectations going into this movie. And I think those are
I
the best kinds. When she did die, I was sitting there in disbelief for a really long time. I was like, there's no fucking way.
Part
But
of me was like, oh, she played dead, right? Right? And
right?
then just
And then the morning.
oh yeah. And it's just nope.
Yeah. I think
It was
yeah.
yeah, the burning of her body, the fact that Joe was his name, I'm 10 out of 10 sure. It was
Schmitty.
just like so fine with just like throwing her clothes and jewelry into the like why was he so numb?
Yeah, like had they done that before?
Well, Alice just like dry
Have they
heaving.
have they murdered a girl before?
Yeah, literally
I
like
bet Schmitty murdered somebody before.
I think Joe must have had such, is sociopath the right word? Because
Psycho.
he filmed Nina's assault.
You're so
So
right. He did.
it's like there must have been some disconnect and like it's just fucked up
He lacks any empathy or
empathy.
yeah.
Yeah. That's so is that
Guy
I don't know. I'm not even gonna try.
psychopath
Yeah.
to actually like act on it. Well, I mean, they both are psychos.
Yeah. One
Psychomentrope.
literally. The psycho men trope was
You know,
literally
there's
this
no
movie.
psychomentrope because it's just men.
Because we've normalized violence caused by men. And that's why it's such a big issue when women do it because it's so rare. Ha! Ever thought about that? Probably not.
Probably not.
Probably not. But it's true. It's like,
It's
let
definitely true.
women, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you could dissect every bit of this movie, and it would still like. There's just still things that you could find about it.
Mhm. To sum this whole fucking thing up, go watch the movie. If you are still
Again, if
made
you
it,
haven't already watched it.
yeah, watch it again. And watch it again if you've only seen it once. Because it gets better.
And watch it again.
Because there's just, yeah, there's literally so many subtleties that sometimes you don't pick up. Like Cassie putting her gum under the desk of the dean to like mark that she was there. Because,
I think there's just, those kind of movies that will live with you forever and you will sit and think about them forever. And this is definitely one of them.
mhm. Oh my God, for sure. Like anyone that hasn't seen this movie in like years to come that I meet should definitely go see it. There's no
Hmm.
reason to not.
Definitely. I
It's
agree
important.
100%.
And like you can only hope that one day you'd look back at a movie like this and be like, "Oh, this genuinely like doesn't happen anymore. Like this is dated, but it's like
Yeah,
as long
that
as
would
like
be a good time, but
as long as institutions uphold protecting these men
and their
just
misogynistic
as
ideals.
yeah, even like the misogynistic ideals upheld by women in the institution. It's like
Hmm.
it's scary because it's like you don't know who you can trust and nothing's gonna happen.
Well, I mean, you definitely get to see those kind of misogynistic women in this film,
Mhm.
like with the dean and with Madison, and it's just the reality of
Which
growing up in this kind
sucks.
of patriarchal society.
Yep.
Yeah. Well,
Mhm.
this has definitely been a different kind of episode.
Mhm.
We really are trying something different, but we're having a great time. Uh, I had a good time.
I did too.
Our
We didn't
next
have a good
episode,
time watching the movie.
I had a good time watching it. I just didn't have a good time watching it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I loved it and I hated it for the
Um,
reason of I'm so sad she died and I hate these men.
yeah, I was just curling in on myself so much of the film. Like, uh,
That's how you know it's a good movie when it
if
like
it if it
legitimately.
if it makes you feel things, then it's good. That whether or not those feelings are good things or like good feelings or bad feelings, it's like if you're feeling something, then it does its job to get an
Feel your
emotional
fucking
response of you.
feelings. Yeah. Ugh.
Yes. Yeah, I guess that's really the only thing left to say. I hope you enjoyed our little synopsis and analysis and theorization of this film. We've had a really good time talking about it.
And if you would like to, subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast. You can follow us on social media, Instagram at Double Gemini Podcast, TikTok at Double Gemini Podcast, Twitter at Double Gemini Pod. Give us a little like, a little thumbs up, a little subscribe moment. Yeah, and we'll have a new video next week.
We've been slacking on posting on TikTok, but I promise we'll be back soon.
We've been busy, but it's okay.
We're running businesses over here and
We're
working
busy
our buddies
businesswomen.
off.
Literally. We're busy businesswomen doing business now.
Busy
So
businesswomen. Quick promo if you want to go shop on my Etsy shop, it's Tay Mouse Designs. I'd love to make you something.
I'd love to make you something.
All right. Well, this has been a lot of fun. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for listening. And I hope you go rewatch Promising Young Woman after this.
Mm-hmm. You better. Alrighty.
Alrighty.
Bye.
Bye.